I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
The gold rush is over. Gee, this will make a wonderful story. Okay, Andy, this is a horror movie about starvation and isolation, social and otherwise, and real social judgment and relationship struggles. It's might as well have been made by Jordan Peele. Also, there were some jokes. There were some visual gags.
Yeah, that is very funny because you're not far off from what Chaplin was going for with this when he came up with the idea. He was inspired by photos of the Klondike Gold Rush up the famous hike up the pass in Alaska. The what is that thing called? Now I'm just blanking on the name. The Chilkoot Pass. That's those famous photos of the Gold Rush of like the line of people just kind of going straight up. It was the Chilkoot Pass that into Yukon territory that was so popular. So that image, and then paired with stories of the Donner Party and all the starvation that they went through and the cannibalism. And so he said, let's combine all of these stories of deprivation and horror and make it a comedy. And here it is.
Outstanding. He did great, kid.
Yes, he did.
This is the last of our Pioneering Visions series, 1925, and it's the last of our silent films, right? We're jumping forward in time starting next week. So this is it.
It's the last of our entire chronological reverse look at the last 100 years of cinema, starting in 2025 with Ballerina. And then we did every 25 years we jumped back. So 2000 we did the Ju-on series. 1975 we did more Pioneering Visions of global cinema. 1950 we did the Best Actress Oscar race, and now we're at 1925. And this is the end of all of this kind of journey through 100 years of film, which has been pretty interesting, just kind of seeing the changes in the stories.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, man, but I'm going to, because this was your series. This is your idea, this whole arc of 100 years of cinema. How do you feel about what we've learned? Do you feel like you've unlocked some new things in yourself, having watched all these movies? These were your picks.
Yeah, it was an interesting opportunity to just kind of dip back into kind of film history and just look at some of these, a number of which I hadn't seen before. And so it was kind of exciting to see how things changed. And I know we weren't going forward. So in a way, it's kind of like our reverse Benjamin Button, what do we call it? The Benjamin Button style David Fincher series, where we did
classic
his whole series
next reel
backwards. Yeah. And and so having the opportunity to kind of look at these little bits of film history, it's just interesting to see these films that are celebrating their 25th, 50th, 75th, and 100th birthdays, how much has changed, how much still resonates, and how the medium has just evolved so much. And it's interesting, especially with this film, which is definitely not quite as stunt heavy, although we have a few little things, but definitely like effects. Mm-hmm. And then last week, Seven Chances and the world of stunts, and then having started this whole thing with Ballerina, just kind of seeing the full evolution of that. It's been really interesting.
I agree. And I think this movie, particularly what it represents in terms of Chaplin's sort of authorial control of creating this smash hit of a film at the time, of what it represents for United Artists, of his sort of legacy as a creator. And the fact that it's a movie about the gig economy in 1925, which I think is really funny. I couldn't help but think all these prospectors are, all of their descendants are delivering DoorDash. And so I think that it just represents a lot of really interesting things to the history of film, the history of the film business. And I think that's it's important stuff.
Yes,
what Chaplin has
absolutely.
done here. So where would you like to start?
Let's start with Chaplin himself, since this is the first film we've ever discussed featuring Charlie Chaplin, and so it's interesting to kind of now tap into this. This is I mean, he had done plenty of short films before this. He did, I believe, one feature before this. I don't think he directed it, but oh no, he did direct it. His role is small, as a Woman of Paris, but then the rest of his feature films, like he is, I think this set kind of a standard for where he would kind of go with this. And this is, I think, the only one he really did in the silent era. But it's interesting because The Tramp was such a kind of core element of who he kind of became as a performer, as somebody that we all wanted to see when we saw Charlie Chaplin on screen. So by the time he was doing The Circus and City Lights and Modern Times, and I mean, even to a certain extent, I suppose you could say his barber character in The Great Dictator, all are kind of The Tramp, and all kind of operate in the world of silent film. So even though they're technically sound films, he was still kind of doing it in a way that kept that character largely silent. And I think that's a fascinating element of him as a creator, who recognized so early on that this character was one that's how he would continue playing him.
I've never heard it, but I wonder just how much of Chaplin's Tramp is in Teller, of Penn and Teller. Like, there is something really special about comedic performers who commit to the bit to the extent that Chaplin did. And Chaplin ends up having to do it at a time where the expectation has radically changed. The expectation is there's going to be sound, and you're going to choose to play this character the way you play it. I think that's really fascinating. I think it reminded me so much of what there is to appreciate about Chaplin's again commitment to this character that made him so iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, as somebody who started, in so many performances with like the Keystone Cops films and Mack Sennett and those, and then slowly moved into the world of not just acting. And this is a person who acts, directs, writes, produces, writes his own music. Like, he's very involved in his stories. And it started as an actor, and then started acting, writing, directing, eventually started producing, and then doing his own music. So really kind of, as he went through the period of the shorts, that is really kind of like how Chaplin developed his craft and figured out what he wanted to do with his projects and everything. And then by the time he was over with Mutual, that's when he was really kind of producing, and that again led into eventually where he and his other actors would form United Artists and create this new studio where they were making their own stuff and releasing these projects. And so and the Gold Rush, I think, is a fun one for him to do, as really kind of like his first full performance as in a feature, where he's the tramp, but he's this guy who's a prospector, and he develops this story that requires, a mountainous, snowy kind of world that they're in. And I think it creates a lot of fun of the sets that they've created. They did film up at a pass in California to kind of create. They brought in like 600 extras, and like I think they just hired a bunch of homeless people and brought them out, and they basically had them all walking up this mountain pass up in California. That's the only thing that they actually shot on location. All the rest of it was filmed in the studios. They built all of these sets, but then also it allowed him to really play in the world of special effects, and we have the simple things like, okay, you're going to eat a shoe. What can we do with that? I know, let's make it out of licorice and end up having this shoe that you can eat. Then you have the spinning cabin that lands on the cliff and is tipping, and you've got all those gags as they were kind of like figuring out how to manipulate the set and tip it up with the actors and everything. And then you have this fascinating dual printing process that they were coming up with to create these shots, where the first time we see it is when I want to say Black Bart. I know that's not his name. What is his name? Black Larson. Mm-hmm. He has knocked Big Jim out, taken all the gold or taken a lot of the gold, and he's gone off on the sleigh, and he's by the cliff, and the whole cliff cracks, and he crumbles
Falls off.
That was a processing shot that they figured out how to do this, and it's really fascinating. I don't know. There's an interesting behind the scenes effects bonus feature. Did you end up watching that? It's on the
I had
Criterion
no
channel?
such bonus feature.
Oh, the
I did not
Criterion
see it.
channel has tons of stuff.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to look at it, but it was a two process filming thing, and the camera actually had, instead of just 2 reels of film, it had two reels, and one reel would spool from one to the other. This one had 2, so it was 2 reels spooling from one to the other, and it would lay, when it went through the film, it would put the 2 pieces of film next to one another, and one had already been shot, and that was the footage of, they would have a pure white set, and they had Black Larson, the actor, Tom Murray, they'd have marks where he had to walk very carefully, and then they'd have to time it and say, okay, and now the cliff is shaking, so you got to move around, and now it's falling. And so he had to act all of this out, and then they processed that film, and they put it in the other reel on this, and then they filmed the model, and they had to time it. So as it was going through, they had to time the cracking of it and everything to happen exactly when he started moving. It couldn't be too early or too late. And so they did that here, and they did this later when you have Chaplin jumping out of the place. So the effects are for 1925, they hold up quite well.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's so interesting that this film gave Chaplin a great opportunity to really play around with more of those sorts of tools and kind of advance film technology, as it were.
Well, it is especially interesting on the heels of watching last week's movie, with Buster Keaton, Seven Chances, where you see, because Keaton and Chaplin are spoken of often in so much the same sort of breath, to watch the way they approach filmmaking comparatively, I think is fascinating. The fact that Keaton is so much more physical than I remembered, and Chaplin is so much more cerebral than I remembered. And I think those, that makes them, you can see why their celebrity was unique, because they were doing very different things. They were different kinds of comic actors trying to achieve similar goals.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think that's also, they have different approaches, and they also have different different emotional ways they craft their stories. And I think that also leads to, people are always compare them in the same breath. And also, Harold Lloyd, I guess, man, my throat this morning. Harold Lloyd often is put into that group too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because every one of them has its own fans, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm a Buster Keaton guy. I just love his stone face. I love the way that he plays to the camera and all that. For me, I think sometimes Chaplin can get a little too treacly sentimental with his stories. Sometimes it works fine for me. Like City Lights, I think, is the strongest example of that. In this film, I think he gets a little too sentimental, and sometimes I find it a little more sappy. But that's just the approach. And I do think it's especially interesting having put these two back to back, where we're getting an opportunity to really look at, Keaton in one of the films that he has that really has some crazy stunts and a lot of just kind of very funny humor, broad humor. And this one, which definitely has some of Chaplin's most famous moments, like the roll dance is absolutely one of the things that always is repeated.
One of the most famous individual sequences in film history.
In film history, absolutely. Yeah. Eating the shoe, I think, is also one of the his most famous bits. And then, of course, the whole thing with the cabin at the end. But and that's what I've always latched onto with it. And so I think it's telling, like that's what I find most enjoyable in this film, and the love story is the part I always struggle with a little more.
Yeah.
Whereas in Keaton, I think he also isn't as enamored with telling the love story, and it's just there. It doesn't feel as sentimental and and dragged out.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Though this one, the love story in this one, I hate Georgia. Like, I just low-key, I was done with Georgia. I was their whole little clique playing tricks on him. I didn't care for that one bit. It made me just like, can I fast forward? Should I fast forward? Like, I just want to be done with this. I didn't fast forward, but my God, it took it to the point that was out of context, sort of hateful. And
Yeah.
When you're in this period with an otherwise sort of joyful contradiction in character choices, right? That he's already the baggy pants tramp, the oversized clown shoes, but he's trying to maintain the manners of a gentleman, right? He's doing the work, in other words. And I feel like this is a guy who shows up, and you see this is where the class story comes into play, where all of these people are just so outright mean to him and use all of that against him. And I think for the narrative purpose, it works very, very well, I think, in the movie. I didn't care for it. It made me feel uncomfortable. That's the purpose. But it was to a point where I was like, I'm done. I'm done with you, Georgia.
Yeah.
Move on. Let's give the guy a little bit of hope.
And they do. It's interesting because we definitely also have to talk about his re-edited version for 1942. But before we get there, I just like speaking to the story with Georgia. I mean, he does work to give her own character arc, right? Like, she's the one who has the character arc in this story, and he's the change character, and she's really kind of like learning and growing and becoming a better person because of him. She finally gets away from Jack and decides to leave Alaska and, I don't know, go out on her own. And that's kind of where we see her at the end when he discovers her on the ship. And so there is that character arc with her, but I agree. It's like she's been kind of a hard character to care for too much because they are just, they're always just kind of like the nasty people who like to make fun of other people. Mm-hmm. And that's their whole shtick the whole time. Every time it's always more of that, right? Even when she discovers under his pillow that torn picture that she'd thrown away of her and the flower from when they were dancing, they don't use that. Like, that's not the thing that starts changing her. That's an opportunity for, let's just play with him some more. Like, they just keep doing it, right?
Yes, they keep doing it.
And I think this is an area that I end up getting frustrated with Chaplin in situations like this. The lone prospector, the tramp character, is so kind of like, I don't know if naive to the world, maybe just blind, like purposefully, deliberately blind to some of these sorts of realities. But that's kind of the way that he often makes this character, where he's like, I am so in love with this one person that I am going to look past any potential things that they're doing to me and just focus on the fact that I get to sit next to her and hold her hand.
Right.
And I find that a little frustrating with the character.
It's hugely frustrating. I mean, it would be frustrating had it just been a bit. And this movie, it's such a commitment to him being stepped all over for such a long period of the film that it just becomes fatiguing.
Yeah.
The other piece is, I mean, there's so much of Chaplin that feels like Chaplin in this movie. I mean, this is essentially his own childhood, right? Like, this is with Chaplin eating a rubber boot. Like, he's kind of not acting there. He grew up destitute. He grew up Dickensian. He was a kid with parents who were the worst and never really there and destitute and hungry all the time and spent time. I mean, he was Oliver Twist. And so to have him make this movie, right? It's like staring out from the outside in on the New Year's party. Chaplin isn't guessing what that would feel like. And I feel like he's leaning in really heavily on portraying what starvation looks like, what it looks like to be hungry if you had to keep on a happy face. There is something to that, right? There's something to that is in his performance, which is, here's a guy who's making the biggest comedy of the year, and it's practically autobiographical. That's incredible.
That is very interesting, yeah, and I think that there's an element to that of recognizing the realities of what he went through and kind of suffered, and I think you hear that with a lot of actors at this time who were breaking in, who had struggled, and James Cagney certainly, and but it's interesting that he actually builds it into the story here as somebody who is struggling and starving. I mean, there is a whole starvation sequence that we have with him and Big Jim when they're at the cabin, and this is after Black Larson had left, and there theoretically is going to be bringing back stuff from town, and they're starving. And this is the whole bit with Big Jim seeing him as a chicken and wanting to eat him and everything. And it plays for laughs. And I think that's what Chaplin recognizes is the best way to handle those sorts of stories of starvation or whatnot is to, and the horrors of all of this, is to play it up for laughs, and it makes people remember, and you recognize, like, you see those sunken eyes on him as they're sitting there staring at this shoe, like, all right, who's going to take a first bite and see if this is something that we're able to actually stomach,
Yeah. Do you think the movie, particularly the romantic parts, would have been different had Georgia been played by the young Lita Gray?
This is an element of Chaplin that always kind of grosses me out, because Lita Gray was his wife at the time. He married her when she was 16, and she was pregnant at the time, ended up getting pregnant at the time this film was getting made, and so he had to recast her, and that's when he brought Georgia Hale on to play it. And then by the time they were filming this movie, their relationship was already on the rocks. And when he had that scene at the end of the film with Georgia where they're kissing in front of the camera, Georgia Hale, the actress, said that was kind of for real because he was done with that marriage. And so but yeah, Chaplin was with a lot of women, and I think he never married Georgia Hale, but I think they were together for a while, as he'd kind of continue his run of women, and usually young women that he had to run off to Mexico with to marry because he couldn't marry here in the States legally. It's just his choices were pretty disgusting generally, and that's largely him. It's kind of gross, but yeah.
Yeah, you wonder how much of that is in some of that sadness, like this having the stress of reshooting because of what was going on in his own marriage, having her pregnant again, having to recast, like when he is looking particularly melancholy. I wonder if that's not a bit. I wonder if it's just, oh my God, my life is falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's put that on film. This is an extraordinarily expensive movie. We built all these crazy sets. It's taking too long. We've got more footage than any movie that has ever been captured. What are we even doing here? I'm sad, for real.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing some of his real feelings there as he was dealing with all this. Yeah. Oh, Charlie.
Charlie. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Pretty gross. Yeah.
Whatever happened to Lita Gray? Did she end up with a career?
That's a good question. I'm not actually sure. I didn't follow her career as much because she was in she was in some of his shorts, like she was in The Kid. She was in Gold Rush. She did end up in this film. She's an extra somewhere. I'm assuming like at the New Year's Eve party or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, she'd been in a number of his shorts. It looks like her filmography did continue largely just in kind of like a minor sort of way, and often in things like she was in This Is Your Life, and she was in a Chaplin documentary and things like that. So
Yeah. Well, okay. What else is on our list? Enough of that sordid gossip.
yes, enough of that. Okay, so Chaplin we've talked about quite a bit, and we already mentioned as the director and producer and writer and composer, like he was very involved in this film. Mack Swain plays Big Jim McKay. He is an absolute delight of an actor to be part of this, and he'd been working with him since the Keystone Cops days. Like he'd been around for quite a long time, and I'm trying to remember if he worked with Buster Keaton at any point. I can't remember if he did, but anyway, he is somebody who would just, I mean, he's been in, he was acting through the teens all the way up into the 30s. His final role was in 1935. He died at the age of 59. So, but yeah, what'd you think of him as Big Jim McKay?
Well, you need somebody who can work opposite the diminutive Chaplin, right? You need somebody who can be that gruff. I want to say straight man to Chaplin, but that's not really it, right? He's funny in his own right because of just the way he moves and the choices he makes, but he's just so counter to what Chaplin exists. And part of the reason that conflict is funny is because he's so big, and you believe that if he survives in this extreme environment, he must be incredibly good at everything he does and incredibly terrifying. And the fact that Chaplin just bounces off of that is what's funny. And I think that makes him, it endears him, I think, to the audience. It endears him to me as a member of the audience, that in a way that I think is pretty special in this environment that I'm constantly thinking I would be dead. So how is Chaplin doing it? And part of it is because he's so, because of their relationship is so endearing.
I think that's a part of it. And I think the fact that they had worked together in a number of shorts and everything, like it just helped that they knew each other and how to work with each other. He was, his character plays really well as a very kind of like this kind of wall of a man when he first walks in. And this is after Chaplin had already ended up in the cabin with Black Larson, and we have Big Jim come in, and he's like not somebody who's going to be threatened by Black Larson holding a shotgun, right? He takes the gun but the way that you have Chaplin playing off that to kind of like, oh yeah, we're totally together. You got to, do what we say, like that whole thing. It plays really well. And I think it's funny as the story progresses, there is an evolution in their relationship as they go through a lot together. He gets lost in the snow after getting beaten up by Black Larson, and kind of like his, it seems a little bit kind of like he's got amnesia for a spell, ends up bringing him back, and they become millionaires. And then by the time we have the last moments where he's getting a manicure, and you just have Chaplin like poking him, like sticking his cane into his ribs, and just like he ends up, it's become very, you can see the relationship develop into something that's much more congenial, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do too. We talk about Black Larson as the ultimate sort of villain on the mountain. He's played, we don't get a sense of any sort of frivolity or joy from Black Larson.
Zero. He's exactly the villain that Chaplin needed for the movie. He's never cracks a grin. He's always just this mean person. And I mean, he kills the two. I thought it was very funny that there's two detectives. Like they go out into the wilds of Alaska to look for people. Is that a good
it was a different time,
police
Andy.
Forces?
Very different time. Actually, the last season of True Detective was based on this. It's just all Alaska wilderness, Arctic. Yeah.
Well, that was very funny. I thought that and then he stumbles across them and kills them both out there. His bit plays. It's fine for the movie. I think it works. Not an actor who did a lot. I think he'd been in at least one Chaplin short. But otherwise, I think it's just, I think he works. He's fine for the role.
Yeah. We talked about effects, talked about sets, we talked about general aesthetic, talked about Chaplin. What else is on our list?
I think, what else are we gonna? Let's see.
Can I throw an edit?
Oh,
I want to throw an edit. You take this and put it earlier. Are you ready?
Okay.
I asked the question, whatever happened to Lita Gray? And now I know, and I'd like to insert the truth.
Okay, please.
Okay. So I'm thinking to myself, whatever happened to Lita Gray? And it turns out, she had the moniker of the child bride of 1924 for a long time, and she ended up dying in 1995 at the age of 87, outliving Chaplin by 18 years, which seems symbolic for some reason. Her marriage to Chaplin disintegrated very, very publicly in 1927 and was incredibly bitter. And her divorce complaint was 40 pages long. It was sold on street corners. It exposed damaging and very intimate details about Chaplin's behavior. She ended up winning a divorce settlement to the tune of $825,000 in those days, $14 million today, the largest divorce settlement in American legal history at the time. And it ended up completely blacklisting her from major Hollywood productions to come. The industry sided with Chaplin. She ended up touring as a vaudeville singer for a while. She was trying to capitalize on the name Lita Gray Chaplin. She was in nightclubs across Europe. She married 3 more times, all ended in divorce, but did end up raising her 2 sons, Charles Jr. and Sidney. Both became actors, and ended up Charles Jr. died young in 1968. Sidney ended up performing on Broadway and won a Tony. She was a clerk at Robinson's department store for many, many years, and ended up writing a couple of memoirs. The most notable one, which I am actually curious about, was called The Wife of the Life of the Party, and where she got a chance to kind of shed the moniker of the bitter ex-wife. What an incredibly interesting post-Chaplin entire life from 1927 on. And she died of cancer in L.A.
Jeez. Well, and probably had been set up where she didn't need to really work too much after winning that divorce settlement. So.
Yeah, right. $1925, you invest that right. You're doing fine.
Yeah, no kidding.
I hope she was doing fine.
I hope so. I mean, the fact that she had to work at a department store for a few decades may make that not seem the case, but maybe she was just bored, needed something for fun.
Exactly. They said it was a very open secret in Hollywood, apparently, that the polite woman selling you a scarf was the same woman who had once brought the biggest star in the world to his knees. Fascinating. Wow.
Life. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Huh. All right. Cut that in right back there earlier.
Yeah.
Make us sound like we know something.
There you go. Well, I want to talk about some different sequences of the film. I think there are a number of sequences that are worth discussing, and just like whether it's different effects or just what they're doing. The film, we already talked about how it starts. It's kind of like the same setup of kind of like those images of the Klondike Gold Rush of the Chilkoot Pass, and we have images that they created out in the pass in California to do that. And then we meet the lone prospector. And this first time we meet him, he is wandering along what made me think of cliff's edges, just like the hobbits and the Fellowship have to go through in Lord 100%. Of the Rings. It's like this little mountain sidewalk that's just on the side of a mountain. There's a whole gag with a bear, which we have the bear repeat itself a number of times in this film.
That was a good bear costume too.
For later in the film, not at this
Yeah.
point, it's the actual bear. Yes,
It's the actual bear. But later, when that it looks like the bear. Like
it did a pretty good job. Yeah.
I was very surprised when it stood up.
So we start with that, and this is a great moment of some early effects where they have essentially kind of the plate in front of the camera, creating that whole cliff look that he's actually. So it seems like he's about to fall off, but that's kind of how we meet our character. And I'm just curious, like, how does that, like, as far as our introductions, does it play well? Does it work isolating like this? Like, we don't meet him on the mountain climbing up that in the line with everybody.
No, and I think that's perfect because you get the feeling that he's lost, right? Like I get the feeling that he's lost. I don't want to speak for you, but I get the feeling that he's this dopey guy who's wearing his street clothes on this icy cliffside, and he's just making his way. He's just making his way because at this point, I think the tramp, you always get the feeling, even though he's met with hardship, he doesn't think things aren't going to work out.
No,
right? He doesn't think that far ahead. And that's what makes him, that's part of the charm. Part of the charm of seeing him in this incredibly harrowing situation is that he thinks everything's going to be fine.
I think that's a good part. And to your point, he's lost, but I think there's an element of the tramp where it makes sense that we're meeting him isolated, alone. Like which makes sense because he's lost, but just the fact that he's not in that line of all of the people, I think, gives us a better sense of who he is as an individual.
Well, and it's a glass half full, half empty kind of thing. Is he a pure individual, or has he just put himself in a place where everybody has abandoned him and he's off on his own because no one will be with him? And that's sort of the great sadness of Chaplin, of the tramp. And I think in hindsight, I deeply prefer to think that he's forging his own way, but I think he probably intended it to be more of a sign of abandonment, and he gets through it because of charm and wit and fun.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the elements with him as a character. From there, he ends up stumbling into Black Larson's cabin, and Black Larson is we've talked about this a bit already, but we see him, when we meet him, he's burning his wanted posters to warm up the stove. I thought that was fun. But then eventually, like, the two of them are there, and then we've got Big Jim, who we know he's out there, and he's struck it rich. And he's trying to get back to the town and gets lost and ends up at this cabin with these two. Now we have the three of them in this big storm, and we've got a lot of gags with the storm of, like, Black Larson trying to tell the tramp to get out, opens the door. It's so windy that he's kind of like, and the floor is so slippery that he's kind of like ice skating across the floor. Like,
that's an incredible sequence.
Yeah.
It's an incredible sequence for a number of reasons. First of all, the size of the fan that they must have used outside that I don't know how they did it. Did they put it on a gimbal and have him?
I think it had to be a fan, like something, because they probably iced the floor up really well, and had one of those jet engine sorts of things blowing at him.
It also highlights just how balletic he is, right? The way he moves. I think that and the chicken, chicken work, his later chicken work, both shows how interesting his body is as sort of a dancer. I find it really, really fun to watch from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree. That whole sequence kind of shifts to the point where now they're starving because the storm has taken so long to blow out, and they draw lots to see who's going to go back to town and get the food. And Black Larson goes out. That's when he goes out and discovers the mine, kills the police, all this sort of stuff. And then you've got the tramp, and this is the bit where we've got them both starving because they're waiting for Black Larson to show up, and we have the whole chicken bit, which you just talked about, and how funny that plays, the way that the chicken worked as far as watching delusional Big Jim start seeing the tramp as a chicken clucking around.
A giant chicken, which once he becomes like you, this is dark. But once he becomes a chicken, I'm thinking, okay, that's a disgusting chicken. Bring back Chaplin. I mean, if we're going to be cannibals, which one looks more appetizing?
It's just a genetically modified chicken, Pete.
It's GMO. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, it's a good sequence, and it's a good sequence when when Chaplin puts his foot in the fire. You get this whole sense of like everything tastes, smells, sensorily overwhelming, any hint of something that could be consumed. And when, of course, he finally boils the boot and wraps his own foot up in fabric to keep it warm. And eating that shoe becomes such a feast. He puts out silverware and plates, and he's as he's dismantling the shoe, he's sucking the sauce off the nails, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
It is so magnificent a meal that these two share.
I love when he takes the nail and does like the wishbone and holds it up to Big Jim, like, grab the other end, let's pull.
The way he does the shoestring on his fork, like pasta,
spaghetti.
is just everything is such a massive show. To you just feel like he is so deeply in this moment, right, of eating for the first time.
Yeah,
you believe.
Yeah, absolutely. After all the stuff, they get the storm ends, they get the bear, they get fed. He goes into town to while Jim's going to try finding his gold. And so this is the whole moment where Chaplin ends up kind of at the bar, falls for Georgia, the whole bit where he dances with her for the first time because she's doing it to make Jack jealous. And you've got kind of like this whole setup of that relationship leading to them discovering him. There's a whole gag where he feigns starvation to make this good Samaritan bring him in and feed him, and then give him the keys to the kingdom basically and say, here, take care of the place while I go out hunting. And then George and her friends end up there. And we've got this whole bit where he, they said, we'll be here for New Year's Eve. And so he kind of gets everything set up and has this, he falls asleep at the table, has this whole kind of dream of all the girls there, incredibly happy. Georgia is just in love with him. And that's where he does the roll dance, which is one of his most famous things, as you said. It's in context of the film, I think it plays well. But I mean, how does that stand out for you as this moment of this movie?
Well, it's so funny because it's an incongruous moment in the movie. It's a guy who's just kind of showing off at the table, and it happens very quickly in the context of our hour and a half, whatever runtime. And had it not been picked up by someone, right, as a piece that I completely identifies Chaplin, it's easy to see it as just a piece of this film that moves on through history. And I think its promotion later is so fascinating because it has essentially become Chaplin. Here, it's just a piece of the movie, right? It wouldn't have made sense to me why that bit would have transcended the film had it not been for somebody who saw something in it greater than I did. Because this is, seeing that now identifies Chaplin so clearly to me that I feel like I already knew who he was because I was expecting that sequence to come up. I don't know. I'm talking in knots, but I think a lot of it is just like it's just a guy doing a plate gag. There have been plate gag or dinner table gags in film throughout history. Why does this one stand out so much?
Well, and I think it's interesting because it wasn't the first time it had been done in film. There had been a previous, was it a German film? No, I think it was actually, never mind. It was an American film. It was Roscoe Arbuckle. So Fatty Arbuckle. He had done it in the 1917 film, The Rough House, which Buster Keaton had been in. And, but I just don't think that was as memorable. This one just kind of became so memorable. And I think it's largely just because of how Chaplin does it. Like watching his face as he does it, it became such a key element of who Chaplin was, kind of like the way that he would kind of create these little worlds, you know. And I think that's
his sincerity on his face is standout, right? Like you can see how intimate he is in this moment. Yeah, you're right. He's creating a world in his reverie here. It's pretty special.
One big moment that I think that we have to talk about happens after this, and I want to talk about it because, you know, we already mentioned in 1942 he would remaster this film with a soundtrack, his narration, take out all the intertitles, and do some editing. He changes the context of the note. So basically what happens here is he hears the revelry at midnight of New Year's Eve and realizes he's alone and is sad, and he goes out of his cabin to the downtown bar and sees everybody celebrating. At the same time, Georgia, who is now made up with Jack, they're very much happy together, it seems, and all of her girlfriends, they say, "Hey, let's go see the little fella and let's do a whole thing. We'll scare him."
Yeah.
And she goes in and recognizes all the stuff that he had done, sees the stuff the gifts that he had set out for her and all of this stuff. And Jack is just like, "Oh, well, give me a kiss." And she's like, "No, stay away." And it's kind of like she's done with him. She's done with this kind of like side of him, and recognizes that maybe the tramp is the way to, like, we're being mean to somebody who's kind. This is kind of the end of that journey for her, right? Where she pushes herself away from him. Well, I shouldn't say that, because what happens next is we're back at the bar like the next day, and she's written an apology note to Jack saying, "I'm sorry about last night. Let's still be together," sort of thing, you know? And so we get that whole gag. Chaplin is there, and Jack decides, "Hey, let's have fun with the guy." He has the bartender say, "Go give this to him, and don't say it's from me, say it's from her." And he gets all excited when he gets this letter because he thinks Georgia still loves him and is sorry about all this stuff and is over the moon. This is the exact same time that Big Jim finds him and goes off to the cabin and all this. But so that's kind of like her thing. And she gets mad. She sees what Jack had done, and that's when she breaks up with him. And she's like, you're just a jerk. In the 1942 version of this, he chopped out a big chunk of that. Like, this is probably the story thread that most gets changed. And basically, he legit just has her write a note to the tramp. The whole thing as being faked, like she writes it to Jack and Jack gives it to the tramp and all this, that's all gone. It's just she writes a letter to the tramp sees it and goes, Jim takes him off to discover the mine. They become millionaires. He finds her on the boat. The other big change, though, is at the end, instead of having him come upstairs and the two of them kissing in front of the camera, he fades to black as they go up the stairs back to the upper deck, and it fades out to the end. So we don't get that final kiss of the two of them on the boat. So
why make that change of all of them? I don't understand that. Why did he say?
Especially because, like, he's now set it up where she really does like him.
Yeah.
He's taken out that whole final moment between her and Jack as a thing and makes it so she seems to really like this guy. And now we're getting rid of the kiss. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
I don't understand it. But I haven't seen the 42 version. Have you seen it?
I actually just watched it again.
Okay.
I just finished it.
So how does it play to you?
I've never liked the 42.
Over 25?
I've never liked the 42 version over the 25 version. There's something about the way that and it's interesting because Chaplin prefers the 40s version. He thinks that that's the definitive version of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly sure why, but he really prefers that one. And it just seems like, I mean, yes, we're getting less of the kind of the treacly love story, and I'm happy with that. But at the same time, it seems to change some of that. Like he's almost trying to make her nicer by cutting that whole moment, and I just had a hard time buying that she was like, I don't know, buying that she had changed her mind and really loved this guy now,
I think there are two parts of that, right? One is cutting the piece that shows that she's got some darkness to her too, right?
Yeah.
And that is different than cutting the kiss, because the kiss happens no matter what, right? In my head, even if you cut to black as they're walking upstairs, my sense is it's walking upstairs romantically. Am I wrong?
No, I mean they're going upstairs, right? They're heading back up. Well, and it still has that whole moment where the reporter is just like, "Who is this woman?" And you get him like buzz, buzz, buzz. I mean, he literally. Yeah. It's funny because Chaplin cuts all the intertitles and he just narrates the entire thing. Yeah. And when he does that, he literally goes buzz, 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 buzz. Like, I mean, I laughed out loud hearing that. Great. It was kind of funny, but yeah, so you get this sense that he's saying something like, she's the girl I'm going to marry, or something like that. Yeah. And so you still get this sense that they are going to be together. And so by just eliminating this kiss, I don't know. I guess I don't know why he felt he needed to, because I don't feel in either way it changes the ending and the meaning, you know?
Yeah.
I think I read something like where he felt it made it more wistful or something, but I was like, I don't think it did that for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I buy that. I mean, maybe that's a cultural thing. Maybe it's just, through the arc of history, I can, there's certainly that. It's not like he was cutting for time. The movie isn't that long. Yeah, I don't know. Is it weird hearing his voice in this movie?
No.
Watching these back to back?
Well, no, only because it's narrating. It's not like we're hearing it as he's speaking. Yeah. It's just like the narrator, and so it didn't come across in a way where it seemed, because he's also voicing, like he'll still say the lines for Big Jim or Georgia or whoever, So
that part's weird.
Well, but it's not like he's saying it. It's like he's narrating it. It's like, and Jim was like, whoa, 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 and so it's, so it's.
You're saying that's not weird. I think that's the part that's weird for me. It's weird.
Well, yeah.
I think
it would be
weird,
weirder if he was like,
I'm Big Jim.
Like if he actually was doing voices, that would be weird. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Hi, I'm Georgia.
I'm Georgia.
I'm sorry.
All right. Chaplin did the score apparently for the 42.
I don't think he did the score for the 42 version. I think that was what was his name? Mack Swain did the score in 1942. I think for the 25 version, Chaplin had put some of his own music on that version, and I think the score. I think they had lost it, but I think when they redid the soundtrack for it, like and on one of these re-releases, I think they had a composer take that original score and craft it in some way to kind of fit it more. I can't remember exactly the story with the score here. Yeah.
I do have. Oh, this is why I was confused. Charlie Chaplin, he composed and added his own musical score along with the narration for a sound version of Gold Rush, adapting the 25 silent film for a new audience and receiving the Oscar nominations for the music and sound. Is that possible?
The film did. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
I guess I'm confused because Mack Swain is the one who's credited and got the Oscar nomination. So I'm not sure.
He worked with Mack Swain on this version, as they removed the intertitles. Yeah.
So Chaplin might have composed some of it, but Max is the one who got credited. I don't know.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, look at Chaplin as a complete auteur in this case, right? Even that he's participating on the score with Max is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
All right.
One other name that we definitely should mention as it comes to Chaplin and his films is Roland Totheroh, or Roland Totheroh, his DP, who was such a key part in his films and his storytelling. And what I learned as I was revisiting some of the features with this, that I don't think I realized is how the cinematographer in this particular period of time was viewed as the person who was in charge of the visual effects, because they knew the camera and they were the ones who had to figure out. So he was the one who had to figure out this double layering of film to create those those effects, or figuring out the model work or the matte painting work. So I find that so fascinating that he is really the one who's kind of behind so many of these effects that we see in Chaplin's short films and feature films.
That is fascinating. I wonder how early that started to shift as visual effects got inherited by another department, because it makes a ton of sense at this point why you would do that, because everything's camera based, everything's in camera.
Right. Well, and you see like the Voyage to the Moon and those early silence, and they were really trying to figure it all out in camera. And absolutely, it was kind of like that person with the camera was the one who had the knowledge of like what the camera was going to capture. So very interesting.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a solid film in Chaplin's resume. It's definitely not my favorite of his films, but it's one that I always have enjoyed. Where does it stand for you in Chaplin's?
Well, I wish I could say I'm with Chaplin. I'm kind of in the same space as I was with Keaton, where I've seen some of the principal films, and I haven't seen a lot of the catalog. And so, I feel like I'm missing some holes. I've seen Dictator, I've seen City Lights. Maybe that's it.
Did you see Modern Times?
Oh yeah, I've seen. I think I watched Modern Times when you were doing some sort of a thing. I saw it pop up. I was like, I should watch that too. It was peer pressure got me to watch that movie.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, but not a lot. And but I find him incredibly charming, sort of haunted by his history, and a problematic human being, a complex, problematic human being, but such an interesting story. Where do you stand, as it's Chaplin adjacent, where do you stand on Chaplin, the film?
I haven't seen it since the 90s, so I can't completely speak to it, but I remember really being impressed with Robert Downey Jr. I weirdly always remember, it's like Kevin Kline, I think, is his brother, right? I just remember Kevin Kline in the movie. Yeah. There was a lot of things I liked about it. After revisiting this, I kind of got it in my head. I should really rewatch that and see what I thought and how they treat some of these young relationships that he had and everything.
I don't remember much, but I remember when he discovers the walk of the tramp. Like that scene, for some reason, was foundational for me watching RDJ discover that as an actor.
Yeah.
That was incredible. That's a really neat performance.
I think the other time Chaplin has been brought up most in one of our shows when we not during our conversation about the movie Klute, but when we talked to Andy Lewis, one of the writers, and we had our whole written conversation with him about his history as a writer before he shifted careers and became an architect. But and how when Chaplin received an honorary Oscar, I think the 1980 Academy Awards. No, it wasn't. It would have been whenever Klute was nominated for Best Original Screenplay. So 72, 73. Chaplin needed a wheelchair. His brother was in a wheelchair, and for some reason they took him out of the wheelchair and gave it to Chaplin, even though he literally needed a wheelchair. And that was his memory of that Academy Awards, is that they stole his brother's wheelchair so that Chaplin had one.
Wow. I guess that sounds about right. Complicated dude to the end.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, it's a fun film. I enjoy watching it. So, I guess that's it. We'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Ziv Moran, Tony Peterson, Gil Kita, Oriel Davella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at d-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. Okay. Is this me?
This is you, Letterboxd.
I believe it's me. You'll have to stand by just a moment.
I'm very curious to see if we went the same route this week.
Oh, no.
We'll find out.
We've all been there. It's New Year's Eve. You're trapped in a small wooden structure teetering precariously on the edge of an icy precipice. Your roommate has developed a 1,000-yard stare and is beginning to mistake you for a rather large, succulent chicken. And naturally, the only thing on the dinner menu is a boiled boot, size 9, served al dente with a shoelace reduction. It's a situation as common as it is delicious. But frankly, the soul is always a bit rubbery. Wink. Stop gnawing on the leather goods of desperation. Upgrade your cinematic diet with Letterboxd. Right now, you can save 20% on a pro or patron account. It removes the ads, unlocks deep statistics about your viewing habits, and ensures you have better taste than a man eating his own footwear. Just use code NEXTREEL at checkout. And it works for new members and renewals, so please, before that cabin tips off that cliff, go to letterboxd.com/upgrade/pro. We think it's pro. I'm going to go with pro. Letterboxd.com/pro and use code NEXTREEL for your 20% discount. Good.
Yeah, you're right. I always thought it was letterboxd.com/.
I can't hear you anymore. You're talking, but I can't hear you.
You're right. I muted myself. You're right. It is pro. Good. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was membership, but you're so smart.
Just guessing. All right. Sequels and remakes, Andy. Oh, do we have a spin-off, a teetering cabin spin-off?
You know, we don't. No one ever did any sort of remakes. And in the scope of reusing elements of it, I guess that's the closest we have, where, again, it's the roll dance has become a repeat that people have kind of paid homage to over the years. The Three Stooges, we talked about them with Seven Chances. Here they are doing the same bit in their film Pardon My Scotch. Anna Karina's character in Band Apart makes reference to it. And again, we already talked about RDJ doing it in the film Chaplin. The one I weirdly always remember the most is Johnny Depp doing it in Benny and June. Like,
yes.
Isn't that the one? That's a weird one to like have pulled up as the one that
funny.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grandpa Simpson does it in episodes of The Simpsons. Amy Adams does it in The Muppets. And and then interestingly, the hanging cabin on the edge of the cliff sequence has been used in 2 Indian movies. So a lot of people love to reference Chaplin and these great moments from his films.
How many of them won any awards, Andy? Do we get to talk about photoplay? Because everybody needs to drink.
Right, exactly. Get your drinks ready because there definitely are Photoplay Magazine awards here. This film had 7 wins with 3 other nominations. The Photoplay Magazine Awards, Best Pictures of the Month in the month of September 1925, it won. And Best Performances of the Month, Chaplin won as well. Then, 1927, the Kinema Junpo Awards. The film won for Best Foreign Film. Jumping up to 1942, back to the Photoplay Magazine Awards. Best Pictures of the Month re-release in June of 1942, it won. And June 1942, Chaplin again won Best Performance for a re-release. Then at the 1943 Academy Awards, it was nominated for Best Sound Recording, but lost to Yankee Doodle Dandy, and Best Music, scoring of a dramatic or comedy picture, but lost to Now Voyager. Then jumped to 1992, the National Film Preservation Board added this to the National Film Registry. In 2004, the Satellite Awards nominated for Best Classic DVD Release, the Charlie Chaplin Collection, but lost to the Lon Chaney Collection. Last but not least, well, not last but not least, but 2010 at the Online Film and Television Association, they put it into their Hall of Fame. And here's last but not least, 1958, the film ended up being voted number 2 on the prestigious Brussels 12 list at the 1958 World Expo by a margin of only 5 votes behind Battleship Potemkin. So,
Battleship Potemkin, another favorite around these parts.
Starting with that one, and here we are bringing it in at the last conversation. Yeah.
How did it do at the box office?
This film did well for itself. For Chaplin's initial silent release of this film, he had a budget of $923,000, or $16.7 million in today's dollars. The movie opened June 26, 1925, and was a massive success both in the U.S. and abroad. It became the fifth highest-grossing silent film in history, earning $2.15 million domestically and $2.1 million internationally, for a total gross of $76.9 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $634,000. And again, that's just the 1925 version of the film.
Crazy.
Very successful movie.
Yeah. Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about it. This was a fun series, stepping back through time, and I'm glad this was a nice way to end it.
Yeah, and here we are, close to New Year's, ending with a film that has a New Year's scene. So a little bit of holiday celebration as well.
Yeah. Look at what we did there. It's like it's movie magic right here on a podcast.
It was all planned. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it for today's conversation. Next week, we are shifting gears as we move away from our look back on the last 100 years of cinema. First up, we tap back into our film noir series with Jules Dassin's great film, Night in the City. Hey, Pete, we're going to talk about some movies you picked.
I don't remember what my role is on this show. All right.
Good time. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun. So we'll be right back for our ratings. Oh, this is me.
Yeah.
I am kind of glad you didn't go the direction I did.
Okay.
Because this is, it'll make this one that much more special.
Well, howdy there, strangers. Name's Pappy. I've been prospecting these hills for longer than most of you have been alive. And let me tell you, I've seen my share of gold rushes. But there's one thing that's been keeping me going all these years, one that's more valuable than any nugget of vein, and that's the rush of a good film. Now I know what you're saying. Pappy, what's an old-timer like you know about them moving pictures? Well, let me tell you, I know a thing or two. And I know that if you want to strike it rich in the world of cinema, you need to stake your claim with the Next Reel Film Podcast. With a membership to the Next Reel, you'll have access to a motherload of cinematic riches, early access to episodes, ad-free listening, exclusive bonus content. It's like having your own private gold mine. And it's not just the Next Reel. No. CinemaScope, the Film Board, movies we like, Sitting in the Dark. They're all part of the same rich vein of film knowledge. But this ain't just about the perks, prospectors. This is about the joy of discovery. Every film is like a new claim, a new chance to strike it rich. And with the Next Reel as your guide, you'll learn to see the gold in every frame, to appreciate the craft and artistry that goes into every movie. So what do you say, partners? Ready to join the rush? Head to truestory.fm/join and sign up. $5 a month or $55 a year. That's a small stake for a chance at the biggest claim of all, a lifetime of cinematic gold. The journey won't always be easy. There'll be times when the vein seems to run dry, when the film seems more like pyrite than gold. But that's when you've got to dig deeper, to trust in the knowledge and the community that the Next Reel provides. The Next Reel. truestory.fm/join. There's gold in them thar films, prospectors, and with a little luck and a lot of gumption, we'll find it together.
Dear listener, if not now, when? If not you, then who? Please help us stop doing Hadley and funny voices by signing up today. That was brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
You seem tired now.
It wore me out.
Break. Yeah.
I'm pure tucking out, I tell you.
Letterboxd, Andy, letterboxd.com/thenextreel. That's where you can find our HQ page, where all of the show's reviews and stars and hearts are loaded. What are you going to do for the Gold Rush?
You know, last time I revisited this film, I gave it 3.5 and a heart. And probably the 1942 version is probably like 3. and a Heart. But I think on this watch, I appreciated so much more all of the stuff that I really do enjoy with this film. So I think it's a 4-star. I mean, I still struggle with everything with Georgia and like every time he's in town, but largely like the rest of it is just so enjoyable. I think 4 stars and a heart is fair.
I'm going to be 4 stars and a heart for very much the same reasons. I struggle with the New Year's Towny Georgia stuff, and but the rest of it is classic Chaplin goodness.
Yeah, just stuff that's unforgettable. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that will average out to 4 stars and a heart, which you can find on our account on Letterboxd at The Next Reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film, and you can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about The Gold Rush? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does.
Indeed.
I ended up with a 5 star and a heart. Can you beat that?
Well, I'm at a 4 star and a heart.
Okay, I'm going to go first because it's not funny at all. It is in the language that I like. It's the language of my style, so it feels very homey to me. The language I like is English. It's in English. I can read it. I don't know where I'm going with any of this. It is a 5 star and a heart from Neil Bahadur. Absolutely beautiful. One of the most perfect works of cinema, in which the desire for gold, the lurch for success, even the hopes and dreams of the future of the average citizen is merely the sometimes, if not often, misguided redirection of the desire to just be loved, appreciated, recognized, accepted. The yearning in this film is unparalleled. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, my 4 star just has this. 4 stars by Travis, who says, mastering the rotating set a century before inception. Indeed. All the work that they had to figure out with that whole set. Well, we have to just point out our favorite one, right?
Yeah.
By San. 4.5.
Wait. Do it in the voice.
I thought you was a chicken.
Is probably my favorite intertitle ever.
So good. Okay, what do we got?
No, you got to say your line.
Oh, thanks, Letterboxd.
It's like your one line you say at the end of every show.
It's my only job.